Gathering themselves, people began the final preparations to say goodbye to Oksana. Everyone worked in silence, understanding that every movement, every gesture was part of a great tragic event. They bathed her and dressed her in the wedding dress she would never wear on her wedding day. It was an ancient tradition. Even if a girl was not married, she had to be dressed in a wedding gown to send her to the afterlife as a bride, since death does not ask when it is time for marriage. This tradition was not merely a custom, it had a symbolic meaning, representing the farewell to youth, to the life that never had the chance to bloom. Oksana was a wonderful girl, full of strength, energy, and life's ambitions. Her death was a great loss to everyone who knew her. For 3 days before the funeral, she had to stay at home, in the house where she was born and raised, so people could say goodbye and pay their respects. Few could believe that something like this could happen to Oksana, but everything felt like a terrible nightmare. The villagers came to take one last look at her peaceful face, which seemed still alive. They whispered words of sympathy, wiping away tears and secretly gazing at her face, which remained unchanged. Some stayed the night to endure this terrible loss together. Those who stayed knew well that the deceased should not be left alone, and it was here that things began to happen that even the oldest people could not explain. At night, when the entire yard was engulfed by darkness, something invisible began to happen. Stepping out into the yard, people noticed strange things. Shadows began to appear from the windows of the house that stood deep in the yard. Like invisible hands, they reached out, circling around the house, swallowing the night within themselves. At first, it was just an impression, then a true reality. The shadow moved around the yard, but neither windows nor doors opened. The shadow, which sometimes passed behind the gates, seemed afraid to cross the boundary, not daring to enter the yard. Everyone who saw these strange phenomena hurried outside to check if it was just their imagination. However, as soon as they stepped outside, the night became absolutely merciless. The street was empty, no sound, no movement. And yet, when returning to the house, the same people again saw the unexplained shadow moving silently around the yard. Its contours were blurry and ghostly, but clear enough to understand that it was not an ordinary shadow. Something hidden, ominous, was there. The shadow had no distinct features, but its presence was real, like the feeling of a foreign gaze on your skin. It did not step into the yard, only surrounded it, as if feeling whether it could disturb this uncheckable boundary. And every time the night reached its peak, the weather changed, becoming unsettling. The air grew thick and heavy, like blood that had congealed in the veins, losing its energy. People began to sense that something was wrong. Those who went out to check found nothing, but the feeling of anxiety never left them. Only through the windows, through the darkness, could they see how this ghostly silhouette moved around their home. It was misty, but constantly trying to find something. Was it Oksana herself? Was it her spirit that couldn't leave this world? Or was it something else, dark and ominous, that came with her death? The shadow returned every night, and each time, more people became witnesses to this strange event. But when someone tried to step out into the yard, the night was empty and silent. Everything around looked as if no one had even stepped there. Yet, when they returned to the windows, those same people once again saw this dark, vague figure. What was this? Was it just the wind, or was an invisible force appearing that was difficult to explain? Or maybe it was the spirit of Oksana, who still couldn't find peace. Every time the night enveloped the village, it seemed that even the weather changed, as if the sky itself became darker. Dark clouds covered the heavens, and the wind, which had seemed normal before, now brought a feeling of coldness and anxiety. Everything was not as usual. Perhaps this was a sign that Oksana had left this world and was now seeking her place among the dead. Perhaps it was the spirit that could not find peace because her death had come suddenly, or maybe it was some ancient force which no one could control and which followed Oksana after her death. And while the family bitterly mourned their loss and all the villagers tried to understand what was happening, the night once again went its course, bringing even more darkness and tension into their hearts. Something invisible, frightening, and unknown surrounded everything, and everyone who faced this dark force felt how hard it was to breathe, how their hearts began to beat faster, as if it too was trying to escape from this danger.